Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Talk with Coach. I'm your host, Becca Goldsberry, Elite Sales and Leadership Coach with Southwestern Consulting. This podcast is all about learning from the best in the business, those who have walked the walk and are ready to share their journeys, lessons, and hard-earned wisdom. I'm about to discover some invaluable tips that could help you transform your business and your leadership journey. So buckle up and get ready for another episode of Talk with Coach. Okay, so I am excited to have our guest today, Trey McCallie. We have known each other, I don't know, the last five,
At
6 years?
least, I mean, at least four, if
Four.
not five. But I think some people I know and that you know, I mean, like we were only three
Yeah,
degrees of Kevin Bacon away from each other for a long time. So
that's right. And I know our friend Ashton Wishmeyer finally, formally introduced us
that's right.
together. Um, Trey and I have partnered together over the years doing some immediate results workshops for his team, networked together over the last few years, and I am excited, for him to share his expertise with all you
Oh,
guys. So
drop the
let me
knowledge
tell you,
on you.
I know, drop the bomb, drop all the knowledge, drop all of the things. You guys, Trey is the principal broker for Realty One in Bluegrass Group down in Lexington. He's a commercial and residential real estate realtor. They're in Lexington. We're probably going to talk about bourbon today because that's just what Trey and I do.
Gonna have to.
Uh, and we're going to have to, right? There's some big news potentially out there with that.
That's right.
Trey has 21 years experience in the real estate industry and is a consistent multi-million dollar producer. He is currently serving as the vice president of the Top Producers Club. In 2018, he earned his CRS designation, and it's the ultimate designation for a real estate agent. Trey is also a member of the Lexington Rotary Club. He's on the board of directors for the Bluegrass Realtors and the Real Estate Business Institute. He is married to Dee Dee, who's an enterprise director at Capacity Command for UK Healthcare. Can that name get any larger over there?
Yeah, they've tweaked it a couple of times, but you know,
Yeah,
she's in charge of all the people coming in and getting discharged and going in and out and all the craziness that happens at UK healthcare. So
there you go. And they have two kids, Harper and Spencer. He is a native of Roanoke, Virginia, and a graduate of Randolph-Macon College in Ashland. So, Trey, welcome to Talk with Coach.
thanks. I'm excited to see you and be with you on your podcast. I'm so
I know. I know. I'm excited that you're here. All right. So the first thing we always talk about, you and I, is bourbon.
is
So, and everybody, like my mom texted me because, she lives in Southern Indiana. We don't get this news like in Indianapolis, but like the Louisville market, like
oh yeah.
up with whatever is
Well, I
happening with
mean
Brown.
Brown Foreman's a huge employer in Louisville, so
Yeah.
that's a big bombshell.
Yeah. So fill everybody in. What's happening? What are you hearing? Because you're
Well, I
kind of
mean,
involved with it all.
of course, the newspapers only sell newspapers if they sensationalize the news. But Brown Foreman had some layoffs this week, and of course, the Lexington paper immediately said, "Has the bourbon bubble burst?" And it's easy. Three B's. That's easy to say. I mean, you know, and maybe I'm in a little bubble here myself with bourbon, but I mean, I still have people call me from all over the country. They're like, "Hey Trey, I can't get this bottle of bourbon. Can you get it for me?" And I'm like, "Yes, I've got people where I can get almost anything." I don't see the popularity of bourbon diminishing. I know it's been red hot, so maybe that red hotness of the bourbon market is going to cool a little bit. But I mean, I don't think these multinational corporations are going to buy Buffalo Trace, for example, if they didn't think it was a good investment. And Buffalo Trace is booming. I mean, they're building, all the rick houses they can, all the stills they can. I mean, so I don't I don't think they'd be making those major investments. And if you go to Bardstown, that Bardstown bourbon, they started with like one rick house and
Yeah.
the tasting center. And then I met my friends there that came here from Virginia, and they've got like 10 rick houses out there, and they're not stop. I mean, it's all along the parkway. So every time you go through there, you kind of see it. So I don't think it's the end of the world for bourbon, but certainly Brown Foreman's a large influencer in the liquor space, so you do have to pay attention to it. But I think the rumors of Bourbon's death are premature. So
I would agree. And it'll be interesting because I'm driving towards Nashville here in a couple weeks. So that always, because there's a couple liquor stores I typically stop at on the
hmm
way. So
hmm
what will tell me is what's there and what isn't, right?
that's
And
right.
like prices. So my hope is so that some of the crazy prices that were inflated just because it was a hot new thing, maybe it'll go back down to what.
Yeah, maybe there's some value to be had there. I haven't got. I have, as my wife said when we moved, she goes, "You have bourbon hidden in places you." I mean, I found 2 bottles of Blanton's in my closet, still in the box that somebody gave me. And she's like, "You don't even know what you have." So I haven't had to go buy bourbon at the liquor store in quite a long time, and I'll be stocked up until the end of days probably. So
Oh, that's not too bad.
yeah.
What is your favorite? Is Blanton's your favorite?
I like Blanton's. I mean, I think if I'm going to go tailgate and just like my everyday is probably Bullet, but
Okay.
I haven't met many bourbons I didn't like. So I mean, I'm not as the ones that really do the tastings and really can taste the different tannins and blueberries and all that stuff. It just tastes like bourbon to me. I've never had that fancy of a palate. So
Okay.
there aren't many I don't like. I mean, I can definitely like. I'll give you an example. My buddies and I in Virginia, shame on us, we used to call Jack Daniel's bourbon. I
Oh
got
yeah.
corrected with that very quickly by one of my wife's friends who was like, "We don't drink that Tennessee S water here." But I went back to Virginia to go to a Virginia Tech game, and I was I was flying in, and I was meeting my fraternity brother and his parents, and he ran into the liquor store on the way to the tailgate and bought a half gallon of Jack, and I was just like, oh, and
Mm-mm.
we made some Jack and Cokes like the old days. And I mean, I was like, I couldn't drink it. So I realized that my palate has gotten used to the delicious limestone water flavored bourbon of the Bluegrass. But
Yes.
that's probably as snobby as I get. I mean, I don't want to, but I do find as the grade goes down and you get to like a Jack or a Jim, I can't really do it. I mean, I do,
Yeah.
Bullet, Woodford, and makers are probably my everyday go-tos. And then, you know, like when my neighbor came walking across the yard to have a little green Weller party on my back porch, I was okay with that.
Yeah.
I can definitely tell the different grades of bourbon. And I've learned a lot since I've lived, 14 years in Kentucky. I've learned a lot going on the tours and everything. So
Oh, absolutely. I think my everyday, well, I grew up with my dad always drank makers, right?
yeah,
It was either a one finger or a two finger day, right? So,
or some
yep,
days it's
there,
three.
maybe some days it's three, maybe
On
four.
my extended week spring or winter break with my kids, I was four. Oh, there's five. No, I'm just
That's good, right? I know those are big days.
I need to get a solo cup because this cocktail snifter is not going to work.
It's not going to work. It's not big enough.
But,
So I grew up on the weeded, right? So I like the makers. I like the wheats, the caramels, the yummy, the little sweeter. I do have a harder time with the smoky ones.
yeah,
Those, uh, there's a couple scotches I can handle,
yeah,
but like when I drink a scotch, it's like,
it's
peat.
rough. I mean, my
Yeah.
parents were big Scotch drinkers. My dad was Glenfiddich and Glenlivet only,
Yep.
and or
Yep.
better, and they always were, much to their chagrin. I liked bourbon, and
Yep.
they tried like I would try to. But I can't do Scotch. It just all I can think about is like peat moss in Scotland. It's just
My sister once says it's like, licking a goat's butt
yeah,
sometimes. Yeah.
that's an apt description.
Yeah, and so uh, some of them are like that, but there's just a couple I could handle. But other than that, a lot of them are just way too much. So
Yeah,
I'm more that sweeter makers,
that's my
type.
girl. I can come to a Colts game and tailgate with you now.
Absolutely, you are more than welcome to come to the Colts game. After this year, there might have been some games that were three and four fingers deep in
Yeah,
those
or let's
last.
just stay out in the parking. Do like UK football. Don't even go in the game. Just stay out in the parking lot.
Yeah, well, let's just hope they can turn that bad boy around real quick. Yeah,
Mm,
let's just pray for some quick turnarounds
that's
for
rough.
both teams, right? Yeah, it is rough. Um, so how did you get in the real estate business? What made you decide, I'm going to be a realtor today?
Yeah.
What did you do?
So I was in sales. I was in IT sales. I sold big refrigerator servers and Oracle database software, big HP servers, Sun servers before Oracle bought them, EMC storage arrays to companies that had like big data. So kind of who could afford my solution were kind of mid-market and Fortune 1000 companies. In Virginia, that was a lot of manufacturers, kind of the Fortune, 500,000, like I said. And I liked it. I did like doing it. I liked calling on CFOs and CIOs and kind of getting to know their business. I learned a lot about different businesses all across Virginia and North Carolina and South Carolina where I had territory, but it wasn't my passion. Like I liked it. I liked the guys I worked with. I liked calling on places. I was pretty good at it. You made great commission when we, like they always said, we're selling these Oracle back then it was CDs for hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you have to be a pretty good salesperson to do that. And I liked it, but it just wasn't my passion. And I never, like when I got out of college, I just never like had the thing that I wanted to do. Like my wife, she wanted to be a nurse from the time she was like 6 or 7 years old. So, she was always going to be a nurse. Me, when my NFL dreams didn't work out, I had to, so I did some career testing. I read Who Moved My Cheese and What Color Is Your Parachute. They had some online career testing in those books. I went online. Real estate was in the top 5 of everything, top 2 of several of them. And I already liked real estate. I'd bought the Carlton Sheets course late at night on TV. That was all the, I think it was even VHS tapes back then.
Yeah.
But I was like, I need to explore this a little bit. So I was in Richmond, Virginia at the time, and I saw that Richmond Association of Realtors had the class, the real estate class. So I went for 6 weeks, Tuesday and Thursday nights, 3 hours at a time after work, and I took the real estate class, and I passed the exam right away. I interviewed with some brokers, but my plan was I was working for kind of a big IT distributor at the time. I had a big territory, Virginia, all the way to Pennsylvania and then out to Michigan. So I had a pretty good territory. And, I was like, some of our clients were like our big hardware clients. So I called on QVC up in Philadelphia, outside of Philadelphia. And, the rep that was taking me in there is like, sometimes, because it was also their studio. So he's like, sometimes I see Suzanne Summers in here. So I was really excited that I might see Suzanne Summers. But anyway, that IT distributor. So I got my license. I was just going to kind of ease my way into it, be a hobbyist, just kind of figure out my way, learn the business, but keep my nice salary and car allowance and cell phone allowance and benefits and all that good stuff that you have when you're in that part of the world. And then, so that was like May, I got my license and I affiliated with Napier Realtors in Richmond, Virginia. Mm-hmm. In like July 4th weekend, they called and said, we're eliminating your department, Trey. Sorry, you're laid off. And that was about the 4th time that I'd been laid off in IT, because that was 2003. And that was right after like the dot-com crash and 9/11. And so the economy wasn't good and people weren't making capital expenditures on big IT solutions that I was selling. So I realized that might be God's way of telling me that I was going to be full-time in real estate. So I decided to go for it. I was really excited about real estate. I got under a great broker, Mark Joyner, in the West End office of Napier Realtors. And I just haven't looked back. I mean, people always ask me, like, especially after I made the move, they're like, what's your plan B? And I was like, there's no plan B. I'm burning the ships and we're going for it. Right. So, and it was funny because even my dad, like, nobody knew I was taking the class because I don't want to tell anybody in case I failed. And I was home visiting my parents one day, and he's like, I think you should sell real estate. And I was like, funny you say that, because I'm taking the class right now. I'm not going to tell you, but anyway, so that's kind of how it started.
Okay, and you're right. Like, I do remember the Christmas of 1999. What was the big? The world was going to end.
Y2K. Yes.
Oh my goodness. We were all, my grandparents, we did a big family vacation, and we were all heading to the Bahamas, and we were all on the same, there was all 16 of us, 14 of us, all on the same plane. And my grandparents were so scared.
Yep.
planes were going to crash and they're going to lose every single family member, because the computers were going to go
Yep.
down. And then, when New Year's hit, we were all up, down doing Junkanoo in the Bahamas, and everybody thought everything was just going to shut off. And then
Yep.
when it didn't, I think everybody drank even more because they're like, oh, we're not
I
dying.
know. I thought about it, and I think the worst thing that happened was somebody had a late charge on their movie at when we still used to rent movies at the video store, and their software didn't have Y2K compliance. So when he turned the movie back in one day late, his late fee was like $50,000 because it was calculating it back to
Mm,
1900 or something like that. But that's like the worst thing. And I think corporations, because I know I was in the middle of it then, and corporations really took it seriously, and I think everybody was pretty much prepared for it. There were
yeah.
some legacy softwares that kind of blew up, but anybody that had anything mission critical, they were updating and getting, and going to. That's why we have four. We don't have just, if you're saying 1971, you don't just have 71. That's why we have 1971 or 2024. That's why you have to have that 4-digit date now
Okay.
is Y2K. But yeah, the whole world was pretty prepped for it because they started working on that in like the mid 90s, I remember. But yeah, it was a scary time because like the media was like, the end of the world's going to come. We're so dependent on technology, and it just nothing ever
Well,
happened.
the media thinks we're all going to die every day, anyways.
Well, they can't get you to watch unless it's just something that keeps you glued to the screen. So
That's a good point. Good
yeah.
point. So, okay, so you've been in the business for over 2 decades. What is okay, so if you had somebody listening today and they're thinking about, what, in today's market, I've thought about real estate, but it makes me really scared because of how the market is. What would be your advice to those people? Or if they started, right? And they're struggling making it happen.
Oh, as a
What
new realtor?
Yeah, as a new realtor, what would be your
Well, I
advice?
think I think the first thing you have to remember is that there's opportunity everywhere. The opportunity may not um, look the way you want it to look, but I have a friend here in town who's a very successful realtor, and he always says there's opportunity for everybody. You just got to dip your hand in the river of opportunity and take your share, or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think you know one of the problems is that realtors don't do a good enough job of promoting what we do for a client when they're going through the process, either buying or selling. So we make it look easy. We're working our tails off, but to the client and to the public, it looks like it's easy. So people perceive that it's easy money. And so I think the first thing is when I start talking to somebody that doesn't have their license yet, I help them to realize that it is hard work. Like it's not, leads are not going to fall out of the sky to you. You're going to have to go up there and, churn up so I have had some people that are like, are you going to give me leads? And I'm like, no, I'm going to teach you how to fish. And then you're going to go out there and fish and get your own leads because that's more sustainable. Because if I'm giving you leads and I get hit by a bus, you're, you're, you're out of business. Um, so I think that's the first part of it is that it is hard work and you earn every penny that you make. But that's not the public perception. I think the other thing is going along the same lines is that you've got to get out there, network, make phone calls, find a way to get yourself in front of buyers and sellers. And there's, you know, 25 ways that I could tell you right now to do that. But just like
Mhm.
any other sales job, if you just sit here in the office and don't take action, nothing's going to happen. Because if you're just sitting here talking to me, Trey, your broker, I'm the
Yeah.
one person I know is not going to buy a house from you. So stop talking to me. And I've had agents, I've said, get out of the office and go hand 5 cards out today.
Yeah.
You have to go to Lowe's or Kroger or wherever, and wear career apparel. Put the sticker on your back of your laptop that says, ask me about real estate, and go sit at Starbucks. But, get out there, and it's a contact sport. So,
It is a contact sport. Another thing I think a lot of people are so scared about is they are so scared to talk with their friends and family about what they do as a realtor, and they're afraid to ask for referrals because let's face it, family and friends are like your worst clients. I mean, they just,
well,
but they,
yes.
but they want to help you succeed, right?
Yeah, well,
So,
not necessarily. Like, and I've told, like, because I used to get really, really mad. Like if you know, I'm best friends with Becca and her husband. We've been over there to eat. They've come over to our house for Thanksgiving. And then Monday morning, I pull up the MLS and she's listed, her house with Susie Agent. I used to get really pissed at that. And
Yep.
this is probably a G-rated show, so I need to be
No, it's
careful.
not. You're good.
But you know, there are people in your circle that don't want you to make that money. I mean,
Mm,
it's, you know, there are people in your circle that are jealous that you're a realtor, that they hate their job and they're envious of you and they don't want to contribute to your success. There are people that are your biggest cheerleaders and they surprise you by how big a cheerleader they are and how many referrals they get you. So you never know how people even close in your circle are going to react. And I've gotten to the point I just don't. My wife gets really mad if like one of our friends or somebody lists with somebody else, but I don't get mad anymore because people have choices. And there's also the thing with your close friends and family. You learn some sensitive information during the process, and some people don't want you to know. Like at closing, everybody sees kind of your credit report and things like that. So people are sensitive to that too, and sometimes they don't want to share that with people that are close to them. We're bound by confidentiality until to the grave. So I can't. And my wife has referred me some people that work with her at UK Hospital, and that's the first thing I tell them. Dee Dee's not going to know anything we're doing. We don't pillow talk. I don't like, she knows I'm working with you and that's it. If you buy a house, that's your news to tell. I'm not telling Dee Dee you bought a house. And
that's
that's
right.
how we've operated. And I can tell that the ones that work with her kind of relax a little bit because some of them work for her and they
Yeah.
certainly don't want to know the boss to know so you kind of have to do that a little bit, but I think it is hard, and and I thought in the beginning I was like, gosh, I know all these people, they all love me, they're all going to want to work with me. Well, the other part too is when you're new, people are kind of going to see if you stick in the business, and
That's a good
so
point.
I know when I got my broker's in Virginia, you could get your broker's license after 3 years. And I know when I got my broker's license, it was in the paper. And I had some guys at Rotary say, "Oh, you're really serious about real estate now. Like, where have you been? I've been working it hard for 3 years." But when I got my broker's license, all of a sudden I was serious about real estate.
Mm,
So I think people kind of take a wait and see attitude too. And I also found sometimes it was almost better to work with complete strangers because then that you could get to know them and build some rapport, and there wasn't any baggage from your family or friend relationships. So
yeah. Um, I have one client and she loves working with like HR directors of companies
yep,
for the relocations,
yep,
especially, Lexington, Indy, Louisville. There's so many hospitals and, manufacturings and
oh
stuff.
yeah.
Like for her, she's like, I love working with HR directors. Like,
Well, and once you have a story to tell with one HR director, you can go call on the next one and
that's
tell them the
right.
same story and your successes at ABC company. And yeah, it's a great strategy. I know people that have built a whole career on relocating, especially like if all of a sudden somebody says, "Yep, we are busting at the seams in Indy and we're going to open an office in Lexington." Well, hopefully I know that person that's working Indy so that
Right.
they can call me and I can get all that business. So
Yeah, because you're pretty big in networking too. You're out and about quite a bit too there in
I
Lexington.
try. I try. I mean, there are certainly ones out here that are better than me at it. Facebook's always an interesting experiment to see who's connected to who, especially in Lexington. I have one friend who's a realtor, Paula Elder, and I swear every person I'm thinking about friending on Facebook and networking with them, Paula's already friends with them. So I'm always like, but yeah, it's like BNI and referral networking opportunities are great
Right.
opportunities for realtors, and I'm in the chamber ambassadors. This is my second year, and it's fantastic. Like our chamber ambassadors group is a great network, plus all the businesses that you're going to their ribbon cuttings and things. So I do like networking. I do like making new connections with people, and
I don't know about you, but sometimes it's just good to just get out of the office and just go see humans.
yeah, because I went through a time after I got out of BNI. I kind of went through a time where I was busy in my business and just not out at a lot of things, and the only things I was going to were realtor things, which is good for recruiting other agents, but it's
Right.
certainly not good to find any new buyers and sellers of real estate. So I kind of at the beginning of last year, I said, we've got to get going with some networking, and I've got to find some groups, and chamber ambassadors and some other things I'm involved in have really helped out.
That's awesome. So where do you see this market from, heading in 2025? Everybody, it's speculation. Everybody's like, really, it's just
All out
speculation.
and
Now, where do you see like
I think I'm very hopeful for 2025. I think we kind of had great hopes for 24 that the Fed was going to lower rates and that was going to trickle into the mortgage market. And somebody promised us kind of 4 rate cuts, and that just never materialized. And then the one they did kind of late in the game, went down for a day and then flipped back up. And so I think, I'm hopeful with the new administration and their economic worldview will help us to kind of shed inflation and shed some of these negative, the unemployment and some of those negative economic indicators that make everyone nervous. I believe we're going to have some rate relief. We're never going to be back at 2.75 or 3%, but I think we will get down into the 6s and 5s, and people have said if we get down in the 5s, we'll be back off to the races. The 7% rate is kind of normalized a little bit. People have said if I'm going to move, I'm going to have to pay the 7% and then refi when it gets better. But we've done a lot of PR to try to settle people down about that, because as interest rates have been recorded since the 1940s or 50s, 7% is the average. And I tell people all the time, my parents bought our, kind of last family house when I was about, I want to say 12 or 13 years old in 1980. I'm dating myself, but 83 or so. And his interest rate was 12%. And I think it's because he knew the guy at the bank from Rotary. I think the interest rate was really like 14%. And when he refied the first time, he saved $700 a month. So that's the perspective that I come from. And when you tell people that, they're like, oh, wow, 7's a lot better than 14. And I'm like, yeah. So I think if we can get settled down with that. I was at a Realty One Group meeting, and they said a couple of the big national builders figured out that if they bought down buyers' rates down into the 5s, they were selling a lot of inventory. So I took a client to a Fisher Homes site about 2 weeks ago in Louisville, and that was they had a buy down that got them into the 5s, and that really had the buyer's interest. So I think if we can get down in that low 6s and 5s, we're going to be in really great shape.
I think you're right. No, it's funny that you mentioned that. So my parents built a cabin in 84, and then mom's like, it was 13%. She goes, so 7% is really not as bad as
but we're spoiled. People that don't have that long-term perspective, like your parents and my parents, all they remember is 2.75 and 3. And so the money seems really expensive at 7%, which it is, and I think I was telling somebody at lunch today, like that move up market is killing us too everywhere, because people that are on their first or second home moving to their second, third, or fourth home, if you're doing well, buying a more expensive home and paying 7%, that's a big jump,
That's massive.
And so people would rather spend money at, a much lower interest rate on finishing their basement, building an outdoor entertaining space, putting a pool in, cocooning in place and expanding what they have, rather than going to, buy something new.
I think it was MBA, Mortgage Bankers Association, where I saw like HELOC loans were just like through the roof, and because everybody was just like, okay, we're just going to stay here because we're at 3%, or we refied, or we're at 5 from 2018 or whatever it is. And
it started with COVID, because nobody was moving, people were moving during COVID, but there were a lot of people that realized that their current space, if you're stuck in your house with your whole family, is not, you can't live like that, because we're all out going to activities and doing things and just sleeping at home at night. But COVID showed that, so that caused a redesign of the house. And then people really started doing, all these remodelers I know in Lexington are killing it for that reason. So
Yeah, if you call like a contractor and say, "Hey, can we do something?" Yep, it'll be 9
6 months,
to 6
8 months next year. Yep.
Yep. Get on the list. We'll get you on the list. If
Yep.
finish early, we'll let you know. So,
Yep.
even just building a home outside, the MIs, the Fishers, the Lennars,
Yep.
even like custom home builders, like they're backed out for a while too.
Yeah. I think Fisher they quoted like 8 months to my clients. So,
Okay. Who are the big guys? Who's down there in your guys' neck of the
so
woods?
Lexington Ball Homes, which is kind of is a local builder, but they're our one big production builder.
Okay.
DG Horton and Fisher are
Yeah,
coming. They're scouting out sites now, so they'll be here. But we've never really had that like Ryan Holmes, Fisher, Horton. We haven't had those guys, but like I said, Horton and
really.
Fisher are coming. So
Oh my goodness. Indy has been inundated by all of them, so MI, Lennar,
yep.
D, DB Horton, they're all here now. Fishers, of course.
Well, I think you know the major metros are better for their business. Lexington's growing enough now that it's a safe bet, and Ball has been the only
Right.
production builder here, really.
Okay.
So it'll be good for Ball to have some competition, but it also will, because like the Fisher homes we looked at were different than the Ball homes that we have here. So I think having some choices for people is always a good thing, and there's certainly plenty of land in the surrounding counties where they can build and come and be successful. But I think I think about Nashville and Indy, like how spread out they are, and little towns around. Like, what's always the one I laugh at when I'm on my way into Nashville that was like the middle of nowhere, and now it's like the suburbs of Nashville because Nashville's
Oh,
just exploding out.
on the north side,
Yeah.
uh,
Um,
White Horse. Uh,
it's got yeah, white, but
where?
it's got that really, it's like McGaheysville or so. It's got a
Oh,
really
yeah, is
funny,
it Gallatin? Gallatin?
I can't
Gall-
remember, but my friend from BNI down in Nashville lives there, and I just always thought that was like funny. Like, you must live out in the boons, and now and I, having spent some time in Raleigh, North Carolina, I kind of saw that effect because Raleigh's like almost expanded up
yeah,
to the Virginia border now, and I mean it's a huge that triangle area has just exploded over the years.
I have a client, Ryan with Aflac down there, and you're right. Raleigh is just like that. It's growing
Yeah,
massively.
it's. I mean, I remember when they put the second belt line in Raleigh. I was like, why are they doing that way out here? And now it's like in the middle of everywhere. So
I laugh. We always used to laugh at Louisville because they had the outer loop, and I'm like, "What you guys doing with the outer
what's that
loop?"
out of loop for? And now Shelby
Makes
County's
sense.
getting overrun by Shelby County, and Bullitt and Spencer are getting run over by people.
Well, it's funny because everybody's like, "Well, why didn't Indianapolis finish 865 back in the day? They started 865, like a little bitty piece of it." So
Yeah.
supposedly there's supposed to be an outer loop in Indy to go around 465. So we'll see if that ever
Well,
happens,
but if they start the infrastructure, they can finish it later. That's how government funding works, unfortunately.
right? So, um, so 2025 should be better than
Yeah,
2024. Hope.
I think 24 was just a really tough year. Talking to my colleagues that are realtors, it was just a tough
Mhm.
year. But I think it's gonna be a better year. It's got to be. I mean, um, Brian Buffini said we sold the same amount of houses as 1993 in 2024, and we had 80 million less people. So I mean, it's like that's a crazy stat.
That is a crazy stat. That's wow. That says
Yeah,
something right there, doesn't it?
yeah.
Wow. What do you think the biggest challenges for 2025 is going to be?
Well, I think I feel like businesses, business people, I think everybody's really nervous. And I think we got to shake off the nerves and just start taking action again and just getting our economy going. Like I said, I think people feel confident that, business people feel confident that Trump won. Certainly the um, stock market reacted like the next day after Trump won. And so I think people are feeling, once we get him, inaugurated on, I guess it's on Monday,
Yeah.
that we'll start moving forward again. Um, but I think, I know that for me, like I certainly got in the doldrums last year because I had, my best year ever in 2023. And then I followed it up with, I don't think it was my worst year ever, but it was certainly for my, looking at 23 and then looking at 24, I was like, wow, I really fell off the earth there. But so I think like I've had to kind of like, let's get back to some fundamentals. Let's do what you've always done. Let's stay consistent. But I think we just all have to be hopeful and keep pushing forward and not be, nervous about what Syria is going to do or what North Korea is going to do or whatever.
Yeah, that stuff. Yeah, no, I love it. So if you gave like your three biggest tips, any industry, any business person, what would be your like if you somebody asked like Trey's best advice about business, what would it be?
I think that you can't keep yourself a secret. Like in real estate, we always joke about people being a secret agent.
Mm,
And I tell people all the time, like, you may not like me, you may not know me, but if you are on Facebook with me or Twitter or whatever, I'm a realtor. I mean, like, nobody that knows. In fact, I laughed the other day. One of my son's friends' parents, like, I said something about showing a house, and she's like, "Oh, you're a realtor?" And I was like, and she's, a little bit aloof, but I was like, "Oh, I need to get on it." She didn't know I was a realtor. So, I think you can't be a secret. I think and I'm, some people would say I'm not humble, but I mean, I'm humble and I don't always want to be bragging on myself, but you got to brag on yourself a little bit. Like when something good happens, you got to put it out there. I just got a designation through Buffini. I got their certificate. I put it on Facebook. Everybody saw it. Everybody's getting all the kudos and everything. But I think you can't be a secret, and I think you've got to pick things that are special about your business and promote the heck out of them. I mean, I just think because you can't assume that anybody understands what you do. I mean,
right.
certainly when I go meet with people, for the most part, the public doesn't understand how realtors function. That's one reason we've had this
Yeah.
lawsuit because we just have not been promoting what we do enough. So, the first thing is don't be shy about promoting yourself. And I think the more specialized and technical your business is, you almost have to go out and educate people and keep pump. You may be getting tired of that. I mean, I get tired of myself on social media, but
Yeah.
I think I've found the right mix to hit people with. Um, I think you've got to take action every day. You know, Nick Saban's everywhere now because he's on College Game Day, but like,
Right.
and some people don't like him, but a lot of what he says about coaching and leadership and being successful, like, is really true. And
Yeah.
I think about every morning when I'm really tired and I've got to take the kids to school and then I've got to crank it up to get my activities going for the day. I think about him saying, "Fall in love with the grind." And I think, you know, Jared James says, "I want you to be boring. I want you to do the same things over and over consistently every day. You've got to be boring." And so, and that's not, it's not super motivational because falling in love with the grind, like I don't know that I'll ever get myself really in love with the grind,
Yeah.
but I think like every morning when you're cranking it up, you just, and you've got like, and Saban says, even on the mornings you don't feel like it, you still have to do it. Like some days you may feel like I'm really motivated today. I'm glad to make my calls. I'm glad to do this. But there are days you don't, but you still got to do it.
And Saban also says follow the basics.
Yep.
Before they do any funky special, any kind of drills, he goes, "We do the basics
Yep.
every day, right?" And I think for salespeople especially,
Yeah.
they don't like to make the calls. They don't want to cold call. They don't want to do the follow ups and the reach out. But you got to do it if you want
You
to
got
grow
to
your
do it. You got to do it. And then I think the biggest thing too, and I'm coming from real estate, but I think other salespeople do this. Like there is no magic pill to success. Like there are no shortcuts. It's hard work and consistency, and you may not like everything you put out there. You may not be up to cold calling that day, but
Yep.
anybody that's trying to sell you a shortcut is selling magic beans as far as
That's
I'm
right.
concerned. So
Good advice, my friend. Good advice. But I am so glad that we were able to catch up, have a little
I know,
fun,
I
talk
know,
some
this is
real
great.
estate, talk some bourbon. You know,
Yeah. Yeah,
I
we could start a set. I've been meeting with a girl here who does podcasts for business people. And of course, I've been talking about having a podcast for, I don't know, 3 years now. And of course, she's like, you got to just sit down with me and get it organized. And I'm like, yeah,
that's
I need to start working on that. But I enjoy doing this, and I, could talk about lots of topics other than real estate.
I know, me
But
too. Well, anytime you need help and you want help with a podcast, let me
yeah,
know,
well,
friend.
I would love to have you as a guest. The conversation always flows with you
Absolutely.
every time I see you. So
I know, same here. Everybody, this wraps up another insightful episode with Talk with Coach. Big shout out, thank you to Trey for sharing great insights, some fun on bourbon, and especially what could happen here with the real estate market in 2025. If today's episode resonated with you, or if you have a burning question or desire to learn something, shout me out, message me, let me know. Always love to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And until next time, remember every step forward is part of your success story. Keep striving for greatness, keep learning, and don't forget your journey is just beginning.